to obviously our first gathering since the pandemic. So it's a joy to see you all. I want to first thank our mayor and first lady for giving me the opportunity to serve the community and all of you. This mayor, as we all know, and this administration created the Center for Faith and Community Partnerships for the purpose of working with all of you to create a fairer, more equitable city. Faith leaders, all of you, have been our partners in vaccinating the community, public safety, anti-violence efforts, police reform, youth engagement, and you've been a trusted resource for the community in all aspects of life. And I also want to include UPK as one of the other initiatives you all have partnered with us on. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Nicole Jordan-Jones, Nicole, and Nancy Pascal, who leads our center, and other members of the team. Well deserved. And other members of the team who were instrumental in making this gathering happen. I want to end by saying again that it's an honor to serve as Commissioner of CAU and be part of the resurrection and reopening of the city under the leadership of our great mayor. Many blessings to all of you, and thank you.
To deliver our invocation, please welcome Executive Vice President of the New York Board of Rabbis, Rabbi Joseph Potassnik.
Thank you. Do you hear me? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was on Zoom. Thank you. Thank you. Let me tell you that years ago, when we went to camp, we would send a postcard home. Those of you who are 25 or younger, that was a piece of paper. We used to write our feelings, and we would say, "Went swimming today, the food was lousy, miss you, love you." And my mother said to me, "Why do you wait till the end of the postcard to say you love you? You should say that at the beginning." So I just want to take a moment to say thank you to the mayor's office, to a good friend, Penny Ringel, who has served so selflessly over the years, Nancy Pascal, who was mentioned earlier, and to all of you who bring us closer to one another during this difficult time. It is said that young people want just three things from adults. They want a hand to hold, they want a shoulder upon which to lean, but above all, they want an example from which to learn. If we want young people to understand the meaning of respect, then we as adults have to be respectful. If we want young people to understand the meaning of love, then we as adults have to be loving. That's why in houses of worship, there are windows, because what we say on the inside, we have to see on the outside. I have a friend who's a doctor who told me recently that there is a vaccine treatment for cancer. The drug is called EPOCH, E-P-O-C-H. He says it's particularly effective because in the word epic is the word hope. During this epic period, we need two vaccines of hope. One so that we conclude this epidemic, which has taken too many lives. And secondly, we need a spiritual vaccine to combat the hateful violence that has become a scourge, and it shouldn't be allowed to define who we are as a great city. As we approach July the 4th, please know that on the famous Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, there was a crack. It cracked when it was used to celebrate Washington's birthday in 1846. Well, we have cracks in our society, but cracks can be fixed. So let us work together to make those cracks more whole so that we ring the bell again with hope for people of all faiths who belong to one human family. Amen. Thank you.
Praying the second prayer of faith, please welcome Iman Suleiman Kamate.
Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you all. Let us pray. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. You are the Creator, and I know that you are here today with us. You are present here today. Oh Allah, we supplicate ourselves to you. We ask you, by your holy names, Allah, to bless the city, the mayor, and the First Lady, and all New Yorkers. We are here today, oh Allah, to discuss the matter of our young people, COVID-19, and other illness. Oh Allah, we know that you test us, but we didn't lose hope. The hope was there. We believe on you, in you, and we know that with your blessings and your mercy and your grace, we will make it, we will succeed. May God bless you all. Amen.
To deliver our final invocation, please welcome NGO representative to the United Nations and Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual University, Sabita Gir.
Om Shanti. Greetings of peace to each and every one of you. Very, very warm thank you to our special mayor and First Lady for this organizing this event and for inviting me to be here. It's indeed my privilege and honor. So today I invite you to join with me in a minute or so of meditation. So this is not just a prayer. It's going to be a collective meditation. And in this meditation, I will share with you a few thoughts that I will have. And I also invite you to think about what you are hearing and let us go into a beautiful experience of peace and respect. So let's take a deep breath in and relax. Let all the tension in your body melt away for this moment. Now I turn my attention inward and I connect with the life energy that's within me, that energy of peace, of calm, that being that's a child of the Supreme Father, of God, the Almighty. I'm also aware that I have a physical body, which is a child of Mother Nature. So being in the presence of the Father and the Mother, I am reminded of the goodness that's within me. I'm reminded of my innate nature, of peace, of compassion, of respect. I not only respect myself for who I am, but I respect each and every other person and living being because they are all God's creation. I respect my body regardless of color, caste, or creed. And I equally respect each one, regardless of color, caste, or creed, because they are also children of the Mother. I respect the planet. And with resilience, and with the company of the Almighty, and with love and respect for each other, we will cross the boundary and the challenges of COVID-19. And now, to end this short meditation, I invite you to turn to the person next to you and share with that person, whether, I don't know if handshake is allowed, but with a smile or with your loving eyes, and you will show that love and respect and solidarity, communal feeling for each other. Thank you. We can do this together. Thank you.
Please welcome Dante De Blasio.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here today. Appreciate the invitation to speak. I first got involved in the administration's vaccine outreach efforts because I was reading a lot of survey data showing that one of the groups least willing to get vaccinated were young black men. And so I said to my dad, if there's anything I can do to be helpful on that front, I'd like to participate. And that wasn't an easy decision for me. I hadn't done anything public for the better part of a year, but I kept thinking about my good friend Joanna, who got COVID during the winter, and she recovered from it, but as a complication, developed a heart ablation. And she was seriously ill for about 7 months. She had to get invasive surgery eventually, and she's still dealing with repercussions today. She would have been eligible to get a vaccine in about a month. It was just terrible timing that led to that horrible situation for her. And I just kept thinking to myself, no one should have to go through this. If there's anything I can do to prevent a situation from like that developing, I want to be helpful. So I began participating, and I did some interviews, I did a few speeches, but the meat of it was working with the street outreach teams. We would go to busy streets and neighborhoods with low immunization rates, Brownsville, South Bronx, and we would talk to people about getting vaccinated. And we would be accompanied by vans or buses, and these buses could handle hundreds of people in a day, and they'd have nurses on board who could talk through medical concerns. Most of the work was talking to people, and at times it would be very troubling. A lot of conspiracy theories. People saying, I don't want to be infertile. I don't want my arm to turn magnetic. I can't tell you the number of times I was yelled at. People saying, I don't want to be an experiment. But more often than not, it was reassuring. People were willing to have a conversation with us. They were willing to be persuaded. And a lot of the time, we would just ask them, are you willing to get vaccinated, and why not? And why not if you are not willing to? For a lot of people, it came down to convenience. They'd have busy work lives, they had childcare responsibilities. And for other people, they were just confused. They'd heard a lot of misinformation, these conspiracy theories, and they'd also heard a lot of scientific information. They weren't sure who to believe. And so often, we were able to get people vaccinated because we could say to them, I've been vaccinated. My parents have been vaccinated. This is the right decision for your safety, for my safety, and our community's safety. And just that statement was one of the most impactful things we could say. We're in the middle of this big vaccination campaign for teenagers. And I think we're going to be such an immensely important part of this process. So many of the people I met who are not willing to get vaccinated, they had had COVID themselves, they had lost family members to the disease, but they didn't feel social pressure to get vaccinated. Their friends hadn't been vaccinated, their family members hadn't been vaccinated. And I know so many of my friends who are the ones who convinced family members to ultimately get vaccinated, who are the important drivers of that conversation. And I think, aside from the pure numbers angle, they're going to be such important drivers of this normalization of vaccines in our communities. Just achieving that critical mass that makes this whole country safer. So that's my piece. Thank you all very much.
Here to share their vaccine experience, please welcome siblings Lauren and Julian Dawson.
Before I got the vaccine and before the pandemic started, I was on 3 basketball teams, 2 cheerleading teams, debate, music, and band. I love to do extracurriculars. I love to do math, science, ELA, and history. When the pandemic hit, I had to stop everything. I stopped playing basketball. I wasn't in shape anymore, and I wasn't able to do the things I was able to do before. I wasn't able to talk to my friends. The only way I could talk to my friends was on FaceTime, and other than that, I was just by myself watching movies or TV shows. So what I love to do is try to get the vaccine and try to help others get the vaccine so that I can help other people reconnect with the people that they want to talk to in person instead of having to talk to a screen and talking to a bunch of LED lights. And instead of wasting our time on social media platforms, we can play video games with each other rather than talk through a mic or just not be able to really feel each other. It's a different environment when you're able to be closer than 6 feet to each other. So if everybody gets the vaccine, we are more eligible to get closer as a city and become one again and not have to stay 6 feet away from each other to prevent a deadly disease.
Before the pandemic hit, I was a high school student who loved to, after school, go places with my friends, maybe go to a museum or an activity or go get food. And one of the reasons why people in high school can be so close together is because you see each other every day, and then after you see them every day, when you go home, you go and talk to people. But if the only place you know them from is school, when school's eliminated and it's online now, you can't really talk to them because now it's a new year, you're in different classes, you can't really relate to anything because you aren't there together to experience anything. So you may not really lose friendships, but the friendships aren't as tight as they were because you guys have nothing to talk about and there's nothing to really do. Also before the pandemic, I was on 2 cheer teams. I coached 1 cheer team. I did other stuff, and it was just hard not being able to do that stuff because, especially as a team, you're very more social than most people would think because we're on our phones a lot and just all this other stuff. So when the pandemic hit, all I had was my family, and even then, you're not always around your family, so it can get tiring. Like, your siblings can bother you, but you're out the house normally, so they don't have time to bother you. Now you're together, and they have all the time to bother you. So it's like you love them, but you usually get your space away, and now you're all cooped up in the house. And so when getting the vaccine, I remember my first dose, it was okay. But then my second dose, I was very tired and I was just drowsy after that. But the second day, I was completely fine. And I thought that I was the only one getting the vaccine. Turns out maybe like 2 other people in my class were getting the vaccine. And in the chats, we would talk about, oh, this is why I don't want to get the vaccine, or this is why I do want to get the vaccine. And so I thought I was the only one until somebody else said they got the vaccine, and I was like, oh, I'm not the only one. And so it would be like a few people trying to convince people to get the vaccine, and I've seen a lot of the things that the city has done to persuade people, like there was a raffle you entered if you got the vaccine to where you'd get a scholarship to one of the CUNY or SUNY schools, and so people were like, oh, that's a great incentive for me. And so there's all these incentives, so because if people aren't willing to get the vaccine, incentives do drive people to get the vaccine because it's something positive coming out of something. And I personally wasn't afraid to get the vaccine because yes, vaccines usually take a long time to work, but I don't think they would give them out to the public if they would hurt people. Because if it hurts people, the public wouldn't trust you anymore. And trust is a very valuable thing. So my thing is when I do get to reach out to friends, I always ask them, one of the questions I always ask them is, how are you doing and have you got the vaccine? Because after you do get the vaccine, you can open up more and get back to your normal social life. And that's when we get back to normal and we can see people, see our families and friends, and everything will go, your stress with the pandemic can be relieved because now we're getting back to our normal days.
Please welcome the First Lady of the City of New York, Shalane McCray.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you, Commissioner Perez, for kicking us off, Rabbi Potassnik, Sabita for those invocations, Dante, Lauren, and Julian for all your powerful words. Many thank yous. And thank all of you for being here today, for joining us, for participating in this gathering. It is truly a joy to be here in person. Thank you to all our faith leaders for their work and commitment this year. You've been here. You've been steady and dependable through the good, the bad, the ugly, and the unknown. You've made sure that New Yorkers kept the faith during one of the toughest times in our city history ever. And today, we're here to talk about a group we are all invested in that has been deeply challenged this year, our young people. The growth and development of our young people is significantly linked to their ability to socialize with their peers and get exposure to other adults, as you just heard. And this period of isolation has been so frustrating for them and exacerbated in many cases by family financial instability, by violence, by personal grief and loss, and despair. Clearly, the path to recovery begins with getting them vaccinated, as Dr. Torian Easterling will speak to shortly. But as we've seen this past year, health is so much more than our physical health. Supporting our young people means caring for their mental health, caring for their emotional needs, too. That is something that our administration has been focused on for many years. And now we must do even more because the need is much greater. We already have in place efforts like NYC Well, our 24/7 helpline. How many of you remember the number? 1-888-NYC Well. This is a test. Can you say it with me? 1 1-888-NYC-WELL. One more time, 1-888-NYC-WELL. Please remember that number, pass it on to people. You never know who might need it, who's in crisis, who might need resources. It's 24/7 and it's free. We also have NYC Care, which guarantees health care access to every New Yorker, regardless of their ability to pay. And it doesn't matter what their immigration status is, and helps them to see a primary care doctor and get all that specialty care for free. In addition to these powerful tools, we want our young people to have a structured path to help them develop themselves. That's why we now have a mental health curriculum. Social emotional learning, which is in every public school classroom in our city. That curriculum teaches them skills for managing their emotions in a healthy and constructive way, especially those difficult emotions like stress, anger, and frustration. It helps them manage conflict. It helps them understand how to process and channel their feelings. Now, this work has already begun. We launched it in 2019. And this work will continue throughout the summer, through Summer Rising and other programs. But this fall, we're going even further. Every student will receive a social emotional screening, in addition to an academic screening, so they can receive the personal attention and the support that they need. Now, just last week, I saw a great example of what this kind of support can do for our children. I was at PS 78 in Staten Island, where I participated in a class exercise called Scenarios. I actually have a wheel that they spin, and the wheel stops. One of the students stops the wheel at a scenario, a situation that they have to react to. And I listened as third graders, mostly students of color, talked about how they would handle their feelings in this scenario. And this one was, they were faced with a difficult math question that they really couldn't figure it out. And they were to imagine what their feelings, what their emotions would be as they tried to tackle this problem. I went around the room, everybody had a partner, and one child, my partner, said that she would take some long, slow, deep breaths until she felt calm enough to think about the problem deeply. Another student said that he would take a walk and tackle the problem later when he felt better. Another boy said he would play music as he did the problem. So in that classroom, they were learning to identify their emotions, like what the emotion was that they were feeling, and then choose a method, a healthy method, to address and process it. All these students are learning that they have the ability and the power to handle tough emotions. And just imagine if we all had learned those skills when we were like 6 or 7 or even younger. Just the thought of that and hearing their squeaky, earnest voices brought tears to my eyes. It really did. I think everyone, all the adults in the room, were very moved by the exercise. So this is really a new era. It's a chance to reach our young people in a totally different way from where they live deep inside. But it's going to take all of us. This is not just the responsibility of the teachers, trained educators, school staff. This is about parents learning these skills too and reinforcing them at home. It's about faith and community leaders serving as role models, encouraging students to remember what they're learning in school and model these behaviors as well. We're all in this together. So I want to thank you again for being here today, and now it's my great pleasure to introduce someone who's made it a priority from day one to give our children the support they need to succeed at home, in school, and in our community. My partner, our mayor, Bill De Blasio.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is so nice to be back together in person. Remember the old song, "You Are So Beautiful to Me"? Remember? That's what I'm feeling right now. It is, I am seeing New York City. I am seeing the best of New York City. I'm seeing us together again, and this makes me hopeful. This makes me hopeful. This is a step, one of many, many steps we will take together to someplace better. I want to tell you how important it is we are together, not just because we gain energy from each other and hope and inspiration, but because this is a call to arms moment. This is a moment we need each other. This is a moment we're going to have to do more together to win this battle against COVID, to fight the dangers that we face, bring this city back fully. You can feel the comeback starting to happen. You can feel the energy in the streets of this city. I'm going to quote the great spiritual leader. I'm going to paraphrase here. The great spiritual leader, beloved by all, Mr. T. And I want to say, I pity the fool who bet against New York City. Because when you bet against New York City, you lose. We're coming back, but we've got work to do. Now, I want to give some credit where credit is due. First to the young people, to Lauren and Julian. I loved what you said, and I love the fact that you talked about the lives of those we love, our youth, as they really are. We're going to reach our young people and keep them safe. If we're going to reach them and get them vaccinated, if we're going to reach them, keep them away from the dangers in our streets, it begins by actually listening to what's going on in their lives. Hearing them, respecting them, working with them. We don't get to just talk at them, preach to them. It begins with listening to them. We wanted you to hear from these two wonderful young leaders who are going out there and convincing other young people to get vaccinated. Let's thank them. There's this other guy they put on the program. I don't know him, but he's quite articulate, I thought. I really have to tell you, Dante, one day he just called and said, "I want to help." You know, we all cherish those moments when someone says, "What can I do? I want to help." And I said, "Okay, you're going to stand on a sweaty street corner and convince surly New Yorkers to do something they don't want to do. Good luck with that." But as he said, it really isn't that people don't want to, it's that people need a conversation. People need a real conversation. And I say about New Yorkers, I love our people. Everyone here in this room loves our people. You do the work of love every day, with listening hearts and kindness. But one thing I think we can all agree on, there's 8.5 million people here, and I like to say when I go around the country, I say I represent 8.5 million highly opinionated people. Right? Have you ever met a single New Yorker who didn't have a strong opinion on pretty much everything? I have not. I have not. So when Dante is out there with his colleagues, they're doing the most powerful thing. Let them have their opinions, let them have their fears and their conspiracy theories, and then answer it. Nurture, communicate, work together. And you would be amazed how much things start to change. And I'll tell you my own story that we were at 125th and Lexington. This is a few months ago, when hesitancy levels were higher. And there was a table, our test and trace corps and our vaccinators, our public engagement unit, they were all out there on the corner. Let's give them a round of applause. And you're just talking about, here you are on a street corner in the middle of the day, a busy street corner in New York City. What you see is what you get. You don't know who's coming up to you, what their opinion's going to be, what they need, what they think, but let's just have the conversation. And what happened time after time was I would engage people, and it was not that they thought the vaccine was bad or wrong. It's that they had not had the conversation yet. And so I'd talk to them, and I'd bring one of the healthcare folks over, and if they had questions, we'd answer the questions. And then it came down to something we can all relate to. New Yorkers are really, really busy. So eventually a lot of folks will say, okay, I'll do it, but like, how do I do it? And we say, right here, sign up right here, right now. This person's going to talk to you right now and sign you up. Because one thing we know as New Yorkers, you better start talking fast the minute someone says yes, right? But it worked. And once someone signed up, we're in business. We're going to be able to keep them safe. So I want to emphasize that because I experienced what Dante experienced. Have the conversation, show your love and your passion for your fellow New Yorker, for your fellow human. And now we're starting to get somewhere, but we have to do it over and over and over again. So I want to give credit where credit is due for this gathering, someone I have turned to many times and I listen to every time, Pastor Mike Walren. Another person who called up and said, I want to do more. And it's not like he doesn't do a whole lot already. He said, I want to do more. We got to break through. We got to reach more young people on vaccination. We got to address the other challenges we're seeing, the violence in our streets. I want to do more. I need everyone to do more. All the people who serve us in the faith community. And we talked about, we said it's time to gather people in common cause. And Pastor, thank you. So many times you've led the way, and I want to thank you. You had one of the first faith-based vaccination efforts as 1 Corinthian, and the energy in your beautiful building, that very special place you've created, the energy of people coming to a place where they knew they'd be trusted, nurtured, respected, and they trusted you and all your colleagues, and people were ready because it was the right place with the right people who they could believe in. And folks said to me, this is the time I'm ready to get vaccinated, because we're here at 1 Corinthians. Let's thank Pastor Mike for that incredible effort. One more story. I love this story. Two sisters, and they were into their 60s, and they went together to get vaccinated. And I went, all around asking people what motivated you to get vaccinated, why are you ready? And they said, our mother told us we had to. And I said, how old's your mom? And they said, 86. And I said, well, okay, to the moms of the world, it never stops working, okay? No, but let's thank all the moms, because they often lead the way. So it is that human element. But we all need to do more now, because look, it's amazing. Well over 9 million vaccinations, more than half the total population of the city now vaccinated. But we've got more, and that's amazing. Congratulations to everyone who's been a part of it. So we're over 9 million vaccinations. I want to get us to 10 million vaccinations and further and further. We need to go further. We need to go faster. I want to thank everyone who's been a part of this. Every one of you who's here, everyone out there who's helped us in the faith community. I want to thank all the members of my administration here who have been working nonstop since March of 2020. I wanted you to hear that again. Nonstop, in many cases, with veritably no time off since March of 2020. Let's thank them. And also, this is a pretty cool place for our gathering. Let's thank everyone at Harbor NYC for having us this beautiful space. But here's the deal. So we've reached so many people, but now the challenge is deeper for two reasons. One, the folks who were most ready, they've already been vaccinated. Now we're talking about a lot of folks who either it's just about we need that last conversation, maybe there's some hesitancy we can answer, some facts we can make clear, but it's going to take extra effort. But it's person by person. I am, forgive the phrase, preaching to the converted here. You're shepherds, every one of you. You know how to work one by one and spread faith. We need to find the next person who's going to get vaccinated today, and then the next person after that, and the next person after that. And do that thousands and thousands and thousands of times. That's what protects us. And if you need some extra motivation, just read a little bit about this Delta variant. Dr. Easterling will, to coin a phrase, put the fear of God in all of us when he speaks. The Delta variant is not to be underestimated. And it is causing real problems in other parts of the world. The reason we're doing as well as we are doing is because we keep vaccinating constantly. But we got to keep that momentum up. So this is a call to arms, everyone. I need to ask of you to go to maximum in your vaccination efforts. Tell us what you need. Our whole team will be following up, whatever you need. If it's time to do a special effort at a house of worship, to do a pop-up site, to do a van, to do a bus, we'll get it there. If it's time to do a gathering to encourage people, we'll do it, whatever it takes, especially in communities that are still vaccinated at too low a rate. But this is everybody's business now. And throughout our 8 years, when there's a challenge, when there's a crisis, we believe, I believe, Shalane believes, we believe we cannot solve the problems of New York City without calling the faith community into the solution. We need you. But the other challenge, and Pastor Mike and I spoke about this as well, what an evil trickster COVID is, a new disease that confused us at every turn, challenged us, took so many of us, our loved ones taken away, but then unhinged our society in so many ways. Work was lost. 1 million people almost lost their jobs. Schools closed. Houses of worship closed. People say to me, what happened? Why did we see more crime? Why did we see more violence? I said, because everything disconnected, like we've never experienced in our lives. And we're all in the process of gluing it back together, and we are getting there more every day. But we're not there yet. And too much of that negative energy got unleashed. And there's still a lot of pain and trauma on top of all the pain and trauma from the years before, and there's too many guns. And we all need to intervene. We need to do a citywide intervention. So we are providing more and more resources to the Cure Violence movement and the crisis management system, because community-based solutions to violence are necessary. You cannot just police your way out of the problem. We need community-based solutions. And the NYPD announced last week something very powerful, and bluntly something that showed real evolution. The Kids First plan of the NYPD was a recognition by those in uniform that the best work they can do is to work with the community, to work with families, to help young people before there even is a problem. Or if a young person is struggling and maybe trending in the wrong direction, that's when to intervene. Do not arrest or imprison when you can intervene well before that point and get that child on a better path. Now again, I appreciate the many good things about the NYPD. I appreciate many changes we have made, and I'm the first to say we've got a lot more to do. But this is a signature moment when people in uniform say, wait a minute, we have to rethink this. If we're not about prevention and proactivity, then we're not doing our job. So it's an important moment, but it will not take full effect without all of you. The only way we reach young people, again, fully the way we need to, is with the faith community. And I want to emphasize again the power of one. One young person in your congregation, in your neighborhood, one parent or aunt or uncle or grandparent who comes to you and says, I'm worried about a child in my life, I'm worried about the direction they're taking. We need to intervene right that moment with everything we got. We've got schools more than ever working to address the trauma, and a lot of that is due to our First Lady. Let's thank Shalane for all she has done to make social emotional education the core of what we do. Every child, I want you to hear this, every child who goes to school in September in our public schools will get a mental health screening for the first time in history to address what they need from the very beginning of the school year. Thank you to our First Lady. But we need to be interventionists. Everyone here, everyone out there watching, everyone you influence, we're going to win the battle against violence one young person at a time. While we do the big structural changes too, we're going to win the battle against COVID one young person at a time while we wage the bigger efforts at public health. We need to do this work with passion and urgency because we're actually turning the corner. And wouldn't it be wrong, just as we can taste victory, to lighten up and let go and see the violence and the disease come back into our lives? We cannot let that happen. So, it's a call to arms. Every single one of you, we need you. Are you ready? Are you ready to be part of this effort? To save this city, to bring back this city, to take us where we need to go? Well, we need you. Last thing I'm going to say. A clergy member last year, in one of those tough moments we went through, said to me with pain in his voice, and it was very honest. He was feeling very down about everything we've been through. And he said with a certain fear in his voice as well, "Mr. Mayor, do you ever think New York City will regain its past glory?" And I thought about it, and I wanted to answer with respect and kindness, but I thought there was something that had to be said. So I said, "Reverend, with all respect, I think that's the wrong question. I think the question is, when will New York City reach its greater glory? What is the next step forward to get even farther than where we were before? Not to believe we had some beautiful wonderland, because we didn't. We had a lot of great things and a lot of problems too. But to believe the next step is to go farther, to go someplace better, which bluntly is the essence of the New York history and the persona, who we are, is to always believe we could do something more. That's just the DNA. That's what makes us great. So we need to win this battle and then go to a place of justice and community that we've never been to before. And I believe with all of you we can do it. And now I have a great pleasure to introduce someone who has been an outstanding leader. Because we understood early on that to fight COVID, it took a constant conversation with communities, and it took a voice that people could believe in and trust. He is a great doctor, he is a great communicator, he is a great strategist. He does not need this box to stand on. No, sir, he does not. He is our first Deputy Health Commissioner, Dr. Torian Easterling.
Thank you so much to our Mayor, Bill de Blasio, our First Lady, Shalane McCray. It is such a pleasure to be joining you all this afternoon. I do not need this box. I can see you all clearly. Can you hear me? All right, that's awesome. I'm reminded just before this event, actually, that just a year ago at this same time, I was asked by then Commissioner Mark Carrion and then Executive Director of the Center for Faith and Community Partnerships, Reverend Atchison, to have a talk with faith leaders. Many of the faces are in here today. And we talked about COVID-19. And now I'm reminded of what the Imam just talked about, hope. Because I had hoped that we would be here, and we're here, and we're having a conversation. And so although I do have some bad news, I wanted to at least start off from this position of hope. Because we have turned the corner. We do have an opportunity to do more, and we are asking you to do more, and you have done so much. Some of the people in this room I've had one-on-one conversations with. I've talked to your congregation. I've spoken to the pastors and the ministers. And I heard the concern in your voices. I've heard the despair and the conversations that you had with your parishioners about having to deliver bad news. And so I think this is important to just be able to reflect on the moment that we're in. And I'm thankful that I get to see all of you in person, shake hands with you, look you eye in eye, and nothing is separating us. And so with that, I do want to talk about the collective work that we have to do going forward, the collective work that we have to continue going forward. And so June 30th of last year, we held the town hall. And one of the main questions that I remember receiving, on top of, tell me more about COVID-19. Who is most at risk? What can I do to protect my house of worship? And so we made a decision to look at the data and to really focus on a neighborhood and bring our resources. And so we brought testing, we brought physicians, we brought social workers to that neighborhood. We work with the Masjid Adams, right there in Tremont. We work with St. Simon's Stock Church as well to make sure that we can bring those resources. And we carry that same spirit into our vaccination efforts. And we're asking now that we carry that same effort as we continue to promote and protect the health of our young folks. Because as you've already heard, that we really have to make sure that our young folks are protected. And so you've already heard sort of the broad number. Over 9 million doses have already been administered in this city. That is a huge achievement. We have more than 50% of New Yorkers, not just adults, but more than 50% of New Yorkers who are fully vaccinated. That is also a milestone, and we have ways to go. But COVID did something else for us. It didn't just put the fear of God in us, but it also exposed the inequities that we've known have been in this country for far too long. And so if we are to do the work that we need to do, and I want to thank our mayor and our first lady for always grounding us and keeping equity front and center, because we need to do it going forward. Because as we looked at the data and we saw the inequities around COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations and death, we see those same inequities bearing out in our vaccination rates. We see it in Brownsville, we see it in the South Bronx, in Upper Manhattan as well, parts of Staten Island. Every borough, there are neighborhoods that need our focused attention, and many of you represent those neighborhoods. So when I look at data from parts of Central Brooklyn or Southern Brooklyn, when I look at our data, when I talk about Northern Bronx or South Bronx, those vaccination rates do not match what we see in the city. And so as I talk about the over 9 million doses, as we talk about the over 50%, and in some neighborhoods, 60% of those neighborhoods have reached full vaccination rates. But we cannot say the same for all of our neighborhoods. We want to make sure that we're promoting and protecting the health of all New Yorkers. In order to do that, we have to bear all of our resources together, collectively. And so the work that we did in South Bronx, in Tremont there, where Pastor Michael for St. Simon's Stock Church and the imam there at Masjid Adams, to really marshal all of our resources, make sure that we tested our way out of higher rates of cases and hospitalizations and protect that neighborhood. That's the work that we are doing now around our vaccination efforts. And so in January, I joined the mayor and the first lady, and we had an interfaith dialogue about the vaccine. And of course, the question was, what more can I do? And so that question keeps coming up. And so we're here to talk about what more can we do? How can we really ensure that we can protect our young folks? First and foremost, the important part of what we know right now is that COVID-19 is still a risk. As you've already heard from the mayor, we're now dealing with other variants. Last week, we were dealing with a Delta variant that represented only 5% of the total cases in New York City. As of now, we're at 25%. Let me just say that again. All the cases that are in New York City that represents the total cases of COVID-19, and if you will remember, when someone is a case, they're at risk of severe hospitalization and they're at risk of death. We want to prevent that. We want to prevent that. And so right now, 25% of all the cases in New York City are the Delta variant. Now, the dominant variant is still the Alpha variant, that variant that came from, that was first found in the UK. So we're looking at all of the variants. But as we continue to see the increase in the concern with the Delta variant, more now than ever, we have to get this message out. And also, as we look at the Delta variant and the cases that are represented in New York City, who are the people that are most at risk for the Delta variant now? Young people. We are now seeing young adults representing most of the cases that are reflecting the Delta variant. And so that's why we're here today. We want to make sure that you have all of the facts, you have all of the information, so you can now take this call to action as you heard from the mayor, and now we step in and making sure that we are armed so that we can get this information out. So you have the information. What do we have to do? Well, I'm speaking to the choir here. We're vaccinated. Folks, you have your mask off. And so now you know that you can rejoice in now having some normalcy. You can now have your mask off if you're vaccinated, fully vaccinated, just to be clear. So that means 2 weeks after your second dose for both of the mRNA vaccines, 2 weeks after the one dose for Johnson & Johnson, just to be clear, all right? And now you do not have to practice social distancing. And that's just an opportunity to really encourage people to come back, as you've heard from our young folks today, getting back to some type of normalcy. So one, we need to make sure that folks are vaccinated. We need to ensure that they have the right information. We have 3 safe and effective vaccines that are available. But when we're talking about the young folks, right now, our Pfizer vaccine has been approved for individuals 12 and older. And so we need to just make sure that we are armed with that information and we can carry that information into our conversations. Now, as a family doctor, I have seen children far and wide, New York City, and I've seen them in other countries as a practicing physician. And I know how important it is that we carry that message not only to the children, but to the parents. And so what I'm asking you as faith leaders is having smaller groups with parents to really make sure that they have the information as well. Because we do not want our parents to block the opportunity for our young folks to get vaccinated. And so there's a lot of information that we've been sharing. We have now created our COVID-19 youth vaccine presentation, and we've been doing this for thousands of houses of worship already. And we're ready to do more. And I want to thank you for all of the town halls that we've already done, all of the presentations that we've done, the pop-up clinics that we've hosted at many of your houses of worship. But we want to make sure that we're getting to our young folks. And part of that is really making sure that we're engaging both our practicing providers and our parents as well. Because they're going to be the key to really carrying that message forward and ensuring that we're connecting to our young folks. And so to all of the youth ministers, to all of the groups, the summer camps, and I'm a product of Vacation Bible School, and so Vacation Bible School is scheduled for next month. We need to be having conversations. Please invite me. I know I'm too old for Vacation Bible School, but I'm willing to come back. Just let me know. Just let me know, and I'll be there. Oh, there you go. All right. So it's really important that we're getting the message out about the vaccines. The next thing that we need to make sure that we're doing, as I talked about at the beginning of this, is that we got to think about our collective action. Because we still have work to do, and the mayor's already talked about it. We have to think about what our just recovery looks like. We still have work to do in our communities. We talked about how COVID-19 has exposed these inequities, and these inequities have been long-standing. And so we have to continue the conversation of how we're ensuring, as you've heard from the First Lady, that we are providing and accessing mental health resources all across our communities. We have seen how COVID-19 has amplified anxiety and stress and PTSD in our communities. We have seen how gun violence has continued to go up in New York City. We've been able to address food insecurity, but we know that housing instability is still an issue. And so what the vaccine also allows us to do is to reshift our focus back to this just recovery. And so I'm going to take my seat and I'm going to ask Pastor Monrose to come up next to talk about the great work that he's doing to address anti-gun violence in our communities, because I do think that that is part of our call as well. As we continue to push and make sure that our children are vaccinated, we also want to make sure that they are covered in other ways as well. So I thank you for the time to share my information, and thank you so much for being here.
Please welcome Pastor of Mount Zion Church of God, 7th Day and 67th Precinct Council President, Reverend Gil Monroes.
All right, thank you so much. Amen. Good to see all of you, and good afternoon. It's good to be back, Mr. Mayor. We're feeling real good about the city. We have our hope up. As one pastor would say in the God Squad, there is no bad neighborhoods, they're all holy ground. And so we're really thanking God for this opportunity. I'm Pastor Gil Monroes, and joining me is one of our Flatbush Leadership Academy young people. And thank you, Dante. He did come out. We did see him for true. He was in East Flatbush. And yes, it is true that he was on the ground. Thank you, First Lady, for allowing your son to come out to East Flatbush Village, East Flatbush. We are really excited to talk about the violence and what we are doing to really work with faith leaders. The mayor, if history is kind to him, will go down in the history of New York City as funding faith leaders and faith groups to reduce the violence in our communities. I know that today was a historic day in New York City, $99 billion in terms of what the budget is going to be. We know that Dr. King did say that a budget is a moral document. If you want to know someone and the way that they spend, look at the budget. And so we want to thank you. The mayor have invested up to $50 million to anti-violence group. I would say as well that we would need to also have the state, the federal government match his commitment to seeing the violence in the city reduced. And so we want to thank you for your leadership on that as well. And so part of the God Squad work, we went national 2 years ago with Clergy for Safe Cities, looking at all of the major cities in America. Not only did New York see an uptick in violence, but all major cities saw an uptick in violence. In Chicago with your film and all over the United States. But one thing that we know for sure that public safety is a shared responsibility. Public safety is a shared responsibility. And so we started the Flatbush Leadership Academy many years ago in Flatbush. And today I am very proud to have some of our youth leaders with us. Martin comes to us with 50,000. When he joined the Flatbush Leadership Academy, he had 50,000 TikTok followers. And today we're gladly proud to say that he's nearly at 130,000 TikTok followers. Let's give it up for Martin. He is a social influencer, and he's going to speak to you today. And then we'll introduce, we also have Aaliyah, who is also in our female cohort. We also have Amelia, we have AJ, and also Justin, who is with us today. Thank you.
You don't do that. I'm stopping. Good day, y'all. My name is Mathin, and I'll be telling y'all the impact of FLA in my life. FLA has influenced me in a variety of ways. We only had 2 participants when I joined, so I talked to about 10 of my peers and stressed the incentive to get them to join. One of them is right here with me, AJ Scott. However, after enrolling in the program, I discovered that FLA is much more than a monthly incentive. FLA sessions implement life skills that are not taught in school, such as financial literacy, career readiness, resume writing, and even the purpose of getting a bank account at a young age. FLA also gave me a mentor who has helped me in getting scholarships for higher education, gotten me a job for the summer, and even showed up for my high school graduation. We outlined our community. In our first in-person session in FLA, we outlined our community, and it was the first time that I realized that even though we live so close together, our communities are completely different. Some communities are too urbanized in the sense that it is congested with fast food restaurants and stores, while in some communities, the inhabitants will have to drive to obtain these resources. Also, in that session, I found out that our neighborhoods are more dangerous than I could ever imagine. Some pointed out that at specific times they can't go to public parks. A woman pointed out that she can't go to the park alone. And some people even told me they have to go in groups to go to the parks due to the violence that goes on there. These points made by my peers are not normal. Some even said they cannot distinguish between fireworks and a gunshot sound because of how frequently both are heard. Violence in these communities come mostly from gang affiliations. Gang activity is all around the community. Even in schools that are supposed to be fundamental for each child's life, in schools, children are influenced and told that being a gang is something cool and end up getting themselves into stuff that they will never imagine getting into. After outlining these problems, we sought to find the solution we've seen the government implement in our communities. But all we could see is an increase in police without community input. Without involving the community, the police officials do not know what the community needs. So we got our solution, which is to create a bond in the community through monthly get-togethers. They'll be able to discuss our community problems. Also, create more community centers, develop teams for a vast range in sports, and also classes on non-academic related careers. So instead of the younger generation being in a place where they can be affiliated, they can chase a dream. I also want to thank FLA and Pastor Gilman Rose for the opportunity to ignite a change. Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you so much, Martin. Thank you, FLA. And we are going to be hiring upward to 100 young people this summer on very different projects in Flatbush. And we want to challenge clergy too as well to really join this effort to reduce the violence in our city. We can't just talk about the problem. We have to be about the problem. The Word of God gives you the problem, but also the solution. So you have to have one foot in the problem and one foot in the solution. So we thank God for New York City. And I think, again, that with all of us and with God's help, we're going to rebound at the highest pace and at the highest place possible. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.
Please welcome back to the stage Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Everyone, I need to come back to you for one moment. Two reasons. The first, just related to what we're doing here. I really want to emphasize, as we're asking everyone's help, we're also trying to create tools and incentives for this work. And I want you, please, to be in dialogue with all the members of our team after this discussion. Our Commissioner Roberto Perez and Nancy Pascal and her whole team running our Faith and Community Office. Everyone here, Penny Ringel is here, so many good folks from our team who do this work. Please connect with them after. Here's why. We are saying to faith leaders, to grassroots organizations, community centers, you name it, across the board, find individuals who are not yet vaccinated, get them to sign up for vaccination at a city-run vaccination site. And for every individual that you shepherd to that city-run vaccination site, we will provide $100 to the appropriate community organization in your neighborhood that you choose. So this is what we call a bonus referral program. Everyone does this work for all the right reasons, but everyone in this room also needs more resources for their communities. So literally this is go out, find community members who are not yet vaccinated, make sure that they are willing to sign them up, and then your organization can benefit with funding that stays in the community. So please, we all want to, when we end a meeting, look at the action steps. That is another one of the action steps we want to encourage, and we'll have the whole team follow up with you. The other thing I have to say is, unfortunately, I'm being called away. I normally have the joy of greeting everyone afterwards, which I enjoy, but we will certainly have another gathering before this administration is over to celebrate everything we have done together. But the reason I'm being called away, I need to ask you to do another public service now. So the heat wave that we've experienced these last few days is now starting to have an impact on our power supply. We are going immediately to start telling New Yorkers to start turning down appliances, air conditioning, everything they can get lower, to start turning stuff off to protect our power supply. Any of us who have been through any kind of blackout or anything like that, we do not want to experience that again. Can I get an amen? Thank you. Thank you, church. Thank you, mosques. Thank you, temple. I'll name them all. Shul, you got it. Thank you for everyone responding in perfect unison. But we need you to spread the word immediately after this meeting We need folks to start using a little bit less energy quickly, given the challenge we are now facing these last few hours. So I got to go and spread the word about that. I want to thank everyone again. And to close us out, again, an extraordinary leader in this city, Pastor Mike Walren. I'm his personal assistant. There.
I told the mayor, make sure you put my feet in place before you leave. So, one, I think that we, based on the words we've heard today from our mayor, from Dr. Easterling, and those who've spoken, Pastor Monrose, I think there's much that we can celebrate even right now in the midst of this pandemic that is still ongoing. There is still hope in many quarters, and I think we could all testify to that. But at the end of the day, we have specific tasks to do as members of the faith community. We do not only celebrate those moments where hope is evident, but we also have a responsibility to speak the truth at the same time. And not only to speak the truth to power, because sometimes we think that being prophetic means speaking truth to power only. Being prophetic also means being able to speak truth to people in ways that are transcendent and transformative at the same time. The reality is that we are still in a pandemic. People are still getting sick. People are still dying. We are in face of now an even greater crisis on some levels, as the mayor referred to and others, with the violence that is in an uptick in many of our communities. That is not disappearing or dissipating. In some ways, the hotter it gets in our communities, which means we have responsibility. What is that responsibility? These gatherings are not just to come and celebrate, although it does have that purpose to celebrate our being able to gather for the first time in over 15 months. That is true. But the prophet Isaiah raises something. He said, he heard God say, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" Isaiah said, "Here am I, Lord, send me." We bear that same responsibility as clergy, as faith-based institutions, to declare in this moment of still impending crisis, to respond to that call, whom shall I send and who will go? Send and go to do what? To still speak truth to people. We still have to demythologize the false narratives around the vaccine. We have to destigmatize getting vaccinated in many of our communities. We celebrate that, for instance, almost more than 50%, I believe, Dr. Easterling, of New Yorkers are vaccinated. But here's some sobering realities. Under 30% of African Americans in this city are fully vaccinated. And many of us pastor churches and serve communities that are predominantly African American, who are asking questions of us, and I know I get the questions, when are we going to be back in church full time? When are we going to be back to quote unquote normal? With under 30% of African Americans fully vaccinated, when this Delta variant, as was already said, begins to uptick, whose communities get impacted the most? What neighborhoods find themselves under assault the greatest? In many ways, the neighborhoods and communities that we represent. So when I reached out to the mayor, it wasn't just to say, hey, let's gather, and we were glad able to do that. But it's really a reminder for those in the faith community. We still have a lot of work to do. We still have to commit to getting more people vaccinated. And as the mayor said, and this is true, and many of us in here have experienced this, when we reach out to the administration to set up mobile vaccination site, pop-up sites, they have responded. We cannot relent in desiring to see this happen. I was amazed by what Dr. Easterling shared. I have to also shout out, he's my Morehouse brother as well, so thank God for him. But from 5% to 25% of the cases in a week, I believe, in a week, a 20% increase of the Delta variant in a week. And we're now entering a phase where people have become a little relaxed. And tragically, we know that the media doesn't often respond to crisis until the death toll begins to escalate. So we must raise the clarion call. We must do the work of speaking truth to people and continue to be vigilant in establishing these mobile vaccine sites, these pop-up vaccine sites, and then doing what Pastor Monrose has done in Brooklyn. That is finding creative and collaborative ways to address the violence in our communities through our precincts, through our neighborhood associations. I am a product of that. Many, many years ago, and I shared with Pastor Booker, who was here, a colleague of his in the AME church, became a mentor to me at 14. When I was in dire straits, one person invested in me, got me to college, and got me on the path that I'm on now. One person made that investment in me, just one. And you never know. Here's the thing. We have a tendency to be fixated, and I'll be done, but fixated on numbers and metrics. Well, did it reach 300 people in this gathering? Did we reach 400 people in this gathering? Here's the thing. You don't know how many people that one person you impact can reach. And so when you invest in individuals and invest in our young people in particular, none of us are fortune tellers. But when we make that investment, we have no idea what these young people will do and what they will become and how they will impact this city. We love saying young people are our future with our mouths, but not with our actions all the time. And so now is a season where we must invest our resources and our abilities and our capacity and not think that we operate in silos, but we operate as unified forces to address this pandemic and also the violence. It cannot be done without our investment. And so I'm grateful for the mayor, grateful for the First Lady, Dante, Brother Perez, and Dr. Easterling. But the truth is, this is about us being reminded that the work still has to go forward. We still have many miles to go before we sleep. And we cannot relax in this season, because this is the vulnerable moment. When the guards drop, we become exposed to our vulnerabilities. And so we must move forward. So again, grateful to the mayor for this gathering, but be reminded, we still got to work. We still got to get our communities vaccinated. We still have to address the violence. And whether or not we know it is at our front door all the time, just this past weekend, we had 2 young people who were shot, or last night actually, 135th and 7th Avenue in Harlem, and then this weekend a young person was shot and killed in daytime on 136 in Lenox. This is a narrative that is in all of our communities. And we cannot turn a deaf ear or a blind eye just because we may feel safe. What does not knock on your door today will knock on your door tomorrow. And so we must be committed to doing this work. So, beloved, thank you for being here on today. But I want to also be able to say thank you for continuing the work and not letting down, not letting up, so that we can really, truly be a city that is safer and healthier, redeemed and restored. So let us all stand and we'll close with a word of prayer. Let us pray. God, we thank you for this day, for this gathering, for this opportunity to be in this space. It has been a trying 16 months. But God, what we know is that in times of crisis, in times of upheaval and turmoil, you have a way not only of moving, but putting your hand on persons who know how to co-create and participate in the work of transformation. So God, we are here gathered, not for marching orders, oh God, but for reminders, oh Lord, that the work is still necessary. The challenges are still present. And there are still those, oh God, who are languishing in places that are underserved, undercounted, and overlooked. And we must become not the voice for, but the voices with those who are trying to make sense in these perilous times. We know, oh God, we can do it by your strength, by your power, but we know we have to do it because of your love. Thank you, God. Continue to allow your hand of protection to cover this city, but not just this city, oh God, all the cities in this world who are suffering because this pandemic helped us see the commonality of all of our humanity, oh God. So God, thank you for this time and thank you for the opportunity to serve in this city. We love you, God. And it's in your name we pray. And we say, amen, amen. Peace and blessings.
Sorry. Just a friendly reminder, I'm sorry, that the vaccine bus is outside for those that are interested in touring it and getting vaccinated if you haven't been vaccinated already.